So people have been asking me for a while to talk about Phil Spencer saying DX12 won't help Xbox. Dragon, why are you ignoring this? Why don't you talk about Phil Spencer saying it's not going to do anything for Xbox? And anytime DirectX 12 is mentioned, no matter how many other statements are available, there are people clinging to dear life to a couple of statements made by Phil Spencer. So if you want to talk about them, let's talk about them. So here is the tweet that started it all. This might be random, but will DX12 be a game changer for Xbox One, and how? Why? Phil replied, it will help developers on Xbox One. It's not going to be a massive change, but will unlock more capabilities for devs. So, massive change has been the words that everybody has used to downplay DirectX 12 this entire time, that one statement. And what exactly does the quote tell you? Does it say that DX12 won't do anything for Xbox One? No. What could massive change even be? Will customers be able to see the difference DX12 makes in games currently on their system? Well, possibly. Maybe it runs a little bit smoother, but overall probably not. It's not going to be massive. You're not going to pop in an old game and all of a sudden see avatar graphics, on Forza Horizon 2. You aren't going to see a difference in graphics just simply going from DX11 to DX12 on the games that are already there. But while everybody is taking this quote and twisting it to be very negative, they conveniently leave out the other part of the statement, which says it will unlock more capability for devs, which means that there are still things left to be unlocked within the Xbox One. So devs are not painting with their full palette. So let's move on to the second point from Phil Spencer. This was brought up in an interview with some of my friends from the Inner Circle podcast. Phil was on there, DX12 was brought up, and here was his response. On the DX12 question, I was asked early on by people if DX12 is going to dramatically change the graphics capabilities of Xbox One, and I said it wouldn't. I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade, but the CPU, GPU, and memory that are on the Xbox One don't change when you go to DX12. DX12 makes it easier to do some of the things that Xbox One's good at, which will be nice, and you'll see improvements in games that use DX12. But people ask me if it's going to be dramatic, and I think I answered no at the time, and I'll say the same thing. So again, if you look at what he is saying, he clearly says it's not going to change the CPU, GPU, and memory, which anybody with half a brain already knew. The capabilities of the machine aren't going to change because the hardware can't change. The hardware is physical. Software is what runs on hardware. DX12 is software that unlocks more optimizations and capabilities of the hardware. And again, everybody liked to quote this paragraph, but they conveniently leave out the statement where he says that you're going to see improvements in games that use DX12. The day that they flip the switch, again, it's not like everything in every game is going to look 100 times better. It's not going to be that sort of dramatic change. But what it does do is flip the switch for developers to start taking full advantage of the system and what it's actually capable of. And again, he mentions giving developers more tools to take advantage of the system that they have in place, meaning they don't have everything already. And if this were a trial and you were trying to honestly evaluate and weigh evidence, you wouldn't just look at those two statements and say that's all we have as far as evidence goes. I think if you want to honestly look at this subject, you have to take into account other statements that have been made by Microsoft and Phil Spencer himself regarding DirectX. Here's a quote. People do understand that Microsoft has some of the smartest graphic programmers in the world. We created DirectX, the standard API that everyone programs against. So while people laud Sony for their hardware skills, Do you really think we don't know how to build a system optimized for maximizing graphics for programmers? Seriously? There is no way we're giving up a 30% plus advantage to Sony. And anyone who has seen both systems running could say there are great looking games on both systems. If there was really that huge performance difference, it would be obvious. There are things about our system architecture not fully understood. Phil Spencer. DX12 will have impact on Xbox One games written for DX12. Some DX12 features are already in Xbox One, but full DX12 is coming. Xbox One is running a version of DirectX 11. And I've shown you plenty of times before the differences between DirectX 11 and DirectX 12. And it's not about getting closer to the metal. It's about how the CPU and the GPU communicate. And again, Phil is saying all the features are there, but they do have to be unlocked. And some people argue, why wouldn't have Microsoft been bragging about this from the beginning? Why wait until now for it to be unlocked? And it's because it wasn't ready. Windows 10 still isn't ready. And DirectX 12 runs on Windows 10. And if they would have been telling you about it, you would have just been calling them a liar, just like you've called them a liar all this time about the cloud, which they're also going to prove to you is not a fantasy. And some of the people who walked away from the Windows 10 presentation walked away thinking that Phil Spencer was talking primarily about PC during that whole spiel. Go back and rewatch it. He was pretty specific about what he said. And he didn't mention Windows 10 on PC or DirectX on PC. He repeatedly said throughout the show, gaming on Windows 10. And Windows 10 is coming to a lot of devices, including the Xbox One. And by the way, during that stream the other day, they never did really show a close-up of that DX11 and DX12 test. They simply said it was the same piece of hardware. The only difference was that one piece of hardware was running DX11 and the other one was running DX12. But in case you missed it, DX11 crapped out at 30 frames per second. DX12 was running smooth at 120 frames per second. But let's move on to some of the more juicier and recent statements that happened just this week. Aaron Greenberg was asked, DX12, is it going to affect Xbox One substantially or more PC? And Greenberg says, both, but devs have to make use of it. So again, saying what we've all been saying from the beginning, the devs just have to use it. And lots of devs are already using it. At the Windows 10 reveal, they stated that hundreds of games are already being made with it, and it's now been adopted by CryEngine, Unity, and Unreal Engine 4, which a lot of devs are going to be using these engines. So that also means, since it's built into the engine, that devs aren't going to have to go out of their way to take advantage of the capabilities. And then finally, what may be the most telling of all was a statement from Phil Spencer where he was asked a pretty specific question. If DX12 requires new hardware for all tweaks to be present, how will the Xbox One have full DX12? And Phil replied with, we knew what DX12 was doing when we built Xbox One. So for those of you who are unaware, DX12 will have brand new features. Many older cards are going to be compatible with DX12. You're going to be able to get DX12 benefits and improvements from old hardware. But only brand new cards are going to take full advantage of all the DX12 features. There are going to be some features that you can only get through a hardware upgrade. So, what did Phil mean whenever he said full DX12 is coming to Xbox One? Is there hardware inside the Xbox One to take full advantage of DX12? All we know at this point is Phil says that they are going to reveal more at GDC, and more NDAs will be lifted at that time, and they're going to talk about the capabilities of the Xbox One. You know, back a couple of years ago, there was a ex-AMD employee who had this on his LinkedIn profile, and he said AMD provided a custom silicon solution to Microsoft for the Xbox One, a multi-year contract valued at over $3 billion. Did Microsoft invest $3 billion into a custom chip simply to make their system as confusing and as underpowered as possible for developers? Did they not really comprehend SRAM? Did they develop DirectX 12 alongside the Xbox One and not really think about how it will impact games for the Xbox One? Do you remember this advertisement that was shown around launch? People laughed at it, saying that it didn't even make sense. Could it be making sense now? Is Microsoft really that dumb, or did they get the reputation for having some of the most talented developers in the world for a reason? Maybe there's a reason why Microsoft dumps $10 billion every year into research and development. And I don't think they do it to give you 30 frame per second games. Regardless if full complete DX12 comes or not, DX12 is coming to Xbox. And it's going to make a difference for content developed to take advantage of it. Phil Spencer has never once said DX12 won't do anything for Xbox. So the next time you read that in the comments section somewhere, feel free to post this to let them know otherwise. We'll find out more at GDC. Stay tuned right here and to VGN. Post your thoughts below. Links down in the description box if you want my sources. That does it for me, The Red Dragon. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.